I'm Loozy, and in this video I'll be going over and explaining the process of how I prepare for a new raid tier, being a raider in a top 10 guild in the world, raiding 7 days a week during progress, while having a full-time job and staying on track in terms of working out and eating healthy. I've split this video into 3 parts. Firstly, I'm gonna cover how I do the actual in-game preparation for a new tier, as this process plays out over months and it becomes more intense in the weeks and days leading up to a raid release. Second, I'll explain my thoughts about how I adapt my workouts, being someone that works out 5 days a week, which can be a little much for when you spend so much time making sure you're doing the best to be ready for raiding. Lastly, diet is a very important part of a healthy lifestyle. And you can spend a crazy amount of time bettering yourself in different ways in life, but if your diet doesn't support that, you won't be seeing the results you deserve. With raid tiers taking up so much time the initial weeks when they first come out, planning your meals and nutrition intake can make a huge difference. I'm gonna bring you with me into the kitchen and show you how I prepare healthy nutrition, high protein meals for both my wife and I to keep us on track while we're both spending the majority of our free time playing games. Before I get into that, I think it's important to just explain a little bit about me and who I am. I began playing World of Warcraft in November of 2011. I began raiding in Siege of Orgrimmar, and quickly after that I began climbing world ranks in various guilds, all the way up until I joined Method during Nighthold in 2017. Since then, I've been playing in top 10 guilds, raiding pretty much exclusively evenings. I've been playing in Fashak since 2019, and this is where I currently play as well. I've been writing guides and articles on Wowhead for Destruction Warlock since 2017 as well, and I've been streaming on and off since then. During the summer of 2023, I made some big life changes. I wanted to live a healthier lifestyle. This is something that really lit a fire in me, and soon after that I got a real taste for working out. Since then, I've lost over 60 kilos and I now live a completely different life. I value nutrition and good food highly, and I prioritize working out and getting stronger. I write the Wowhead guide for Destruction Warlock, which means in the weeks and final days before the release of new content, I have to spend quite a bit of time testing and simming, writing, researching stuff like talent builds and set bonuses, trinkets and so on. Additionally, each Wowhead class guide features a page that shows tips and talent builds for every single raid encounter in the upcoming raid, as well as suggestions for Mythic Plus content. This is also something I sit down and prepare for. And I do this by going over the dungeon journal, I watch VODs of PTR testing, I go through logs on PTR testing, and typically what I look for first is what is my role as a DPS on this fight. Meaning, I'll get an idea of what the priority targets are, what's the encounter layout like in terms of phases and timing. Maybe there's one phase that's very important and you'll want to plan your damage around that, such as on the Silken Court in Neurobar Palace. Knowing how to plan your DPS cooldowns accordingly is going to be making a big difference. The next thing I look for is movement. I play a Warlock, so typically I look for use of Gateway and Demonic Circle. To take an example from Neurobar Palace as well, on Bloodbound Horror, you can place down a circle and use it to skip over the rotating beams, giving you extra time to DPS and not clutter the space around your group too much. In terms of character preparation, this is where your preparation is going to vary heavily from guild to guild. Looking at the difference between guilds like Echo and Liquid, and then a guild like FSY, we approach this very differently. In Liquid and Echo, you're very likely to be preparing loads of alts of the same class or maybe 2 different classes. To illustrate this, I've spoken to Zervo from Echo and Ashine from Liquid. Zervo is planning on playing upwards of 20 characters, and of those 20 characters, 12 of them are Warlocks. Ashine, who's playing his first tier in Liquid, is playing upwards of 14 characters, mainly Death Knight, of which he has 4 characters. In FSY, I play 5 characters in total, where I only have loot priority on 1 of those characters. This means, whatever drops on me in the split of my main character, that's the loot I'll have going into Mythic. I won't have the option to go again on a new character in case my main doesn't land in a split that drops any of the important items I need, such as trinkets or maybe special items. This changes our experience of the new raid a little bit from the other guilds, and that also plays into the way we prepare our characters. We're unable to run the same amount of splits with tons of helpers, but we're self-sufficient with a little bit of help from friends and partners and old raiders. We do the 5 split runs we have characters for, and that's what we prepare for. This means I spend a lot less time during farm gearing characters for the next tier splits than the people in the top guilds. This preparation means doing weekly keys, weekly raids, making sure your character is up to date on the things of that current tier. As an example, during Liberation of Undermine, that will be upgrading the build and making sure you're buying the best items from DNRs. In general, we do between 2 and 3 raids per week, and that gives us enough loot to prepare for the next tier split runs. Like I mentioned in the intro, I usually work out 5 times a week on an upper-lower push-pull leg split. It's a solid plan and it normally looks something like this. But during raid progression, finding both the time and the energy to keep that up is a little tough for me. So I switched things up and I moved to a 3-day full body routine instead. I go to the gym on Thursday, Sunday and Tuesday. Monday and Wednesday are a little meeting heavy for me with work, and Friday and Saturday are my preferred off days. So this schedule works perfectly for me. A typical full body session starts with 2 compound lifts, followed by 5 to 6 accessory lifts, filling the gaps. For my compounds, I'll do 3 warm-up sets and 2 to 3 working sets. Everything else is usually 3 sets each. I'll rotate my compound lifts based on my focus at the time. Right now I'm working on improving my bench press, so I'll bench all 3 days. And then alternate between doing squats and deadlifts, doing each 1 or 2 times a week. On my normal 5-day split, I'm in the gym between 6 and 8 hours a week. And on the 3-day full body plan, it's closer to 6 hours total. The overall training volume is slightly lower, but I save a ton of time by cutting down on traveling to and from the gym. And honestly, when progress rating, I find it way easier to hit the gym 3 times a week instead of 5 times. We can't all have a full-time chef whipping up meals for every break during raids. But that doesn't mean we can't eat good and healthy just because we prioritize spending time playing games. Before a new raid tier drops, I usually do one big grocery haul and then spend a few hours batch cooking, stocking up the fridge and freezer with meals that are high in protein and fit within my calorie goals. This keeps me on track even during those stressful progression days. It took me a while to figure out a system that worked, but now it's something that both my wife and I benefit from greatly. For me, I aim to get around 200 grams of protein a day, and I eat between 2000 and 2200 calories as well. That means almost every meal I eat during raid week has to be protein packed, but I'm not interested in living off of plain chicken breast for a week. I like variety. And honestly, the variety is what makes it so much easier for me to stay consistent and hit my macros without feeling too bored with it. For this raid prep, I'm making 3 different meals. I'll put the macros for each one on the screen as well. The first one is a hidden vegetable mac and cheese. This is inspired by Josh Cortez's recipe, and this is super cheesy and very comforting. It's loaded with hidden vegetables for volume, and it reheats beautifully. Honestly, I think this might even taste better being reheated. The second thing is a meat and vegetable lasagna. This is a rich bolognese with plenty of vegetables for volume. It's layered with pasta, meat and cheese. It tastes almost like a traditional lasagna, but with very, very good macros as well. This one is definitely my wife's favorite, so I always try and stash a few extra pieces for her. The last one is a barbecue bolognese pasta with protein cheese. This one might be my current favorite. It's very, very creamy, it's smoky, it's super satisfying. I think the only downside of this one is that I kind of wish every portion was a little bigger. My goal for every dish is to make it filling while hitting at least 10 grams of protein per 100 calories. If I feel like dessert, I always keep a stash of protein ice cream ready to make in my Ninja Creamy as well. Whenever I run out, I always just make up a few new batches, and it's great for the short breaks during raids. I thought it would be cool to give people a peek at how I balance raiding in a top tier guild during the busiest time of the year while still sticking to my routine of eating clean and working out and having a full-time job. I'll be streaming the entire raid progression plus other WoW content over on my Twitch channel. I'm also posting cooking and workout content on my Instagram, so if you want to follow along there, I'd really appreciate it. I've got a bunch of future videos lined up, so if you're interested in seeing more, you can subscribe here on YouTube as well. And if you've made it this far, I want to thank you for listening to me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.